she wanted to be a marshal. So she called my hometown, she called on my lap, just to avoid my mom. Because, you know, it's like my mom going down this parking lot and stuff. But she was joy.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're getting started at 3-ish. We will do the board meeting after today's presentation. Part of the OWSI came forward, Jason White from OWSI is going to give us a review of last year and what we had for the coming year. I'm going to let the board members come out and mingle with you all rather than trying to turn around and see Jason. Jason, thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. If you don't know me, my name is Jason White, Vice President of Olympic Water and Sewer. Serving the community here with potable water and wastewater services. I'd like to thank everyone for the opportunity to have this town hall. It's something that I've strived to do annually since I've been here in an effort of transparency and building goodwill with the community and the customers that we serve. Today we're going to talk a little bit about follow-ups from stuff that carried over, some highlights of this year, and what we can look forward to going into 2026. In attendance today, we have Jeff Lane, who has not introduced me, representing the PLBC Facilities Committee. Myself, Jason White, Vice President of Olympic Water and Sewer. And we have in attendance our president, Dan Smealan, not only the president of OWSI, but also the president of Port Ludlow Associates. And operations supervisor, Robert Whalen, is in attendance. Maybe we'll talk about that. Going to go ahead and cover some follows through our water system plan, touch on the Washington Utilities and Transportation Commission a little bit. We'd like to go over ice pigging, the project that we had this year. I'd like to touch on our notification system alert media, and let you guys know where you can find the most recent testing results and consumer confidence report that is put out July 1st every year. Mention of our apprenticeship program with Evergreen Rural Water, and then some operational highlights from the different departments, along with forecasts for 2026. So, if you recall, we had our water system plan is in the middle of an update. I say in the middle of, but it has been dragging on for a while. Currently, the Department of Health is awaiting comment from the Department of Ecology hydrologists, and it has been a pretty endless and tiresome task trying to facilitate communication between my regulatory agencies. We're holding on hope that a resolution and a stamp of approval is on the horizon. It's important that we have this update to our water system plan, because an updated water system plan is a requirement when we seek to access financing through our state drinking water state revolving fund. The hope is that OWSI can apply for a planning and engineering loan in 2026, contingent upon that water system plan approval. We'd like to try to secure that planning and engineering loan, because through the state revolving fund, it is one of the ways that we have access to a low interest loan. The goal there then is to get this loan so that we can put forth with our effort to access all of our existing water rights and explore some options for future demand. With that pre-construction and engineering completed, we could then seek funding in the next round of applications for construction. So the planning and engineering is X amount of dollars that is available throughout to a point where you are actually ready to construct. You can't ask for the construction funds until you go through all the pre-planning. The biggest concern from last year's town hall was discolored water. At last year's town hall, the biggest concern for the community was the discolored water. And the Port Level Village Council and the Utility Committee did some independent testing to assess levels of manganese in our system. Over growing concern of emerging studies on the health effects of high concentrations of manganese, particularly on infants and those with weakened immune systems. And I believe those findings are still available through the Utility Committee. What they discovered in that independent test is that we had pretty good water. But it didn't answer the question of the discolorment, right? So historically, OWSI has addressed that color primarily over the flush. But we made a real bold decision this last year to try a process of pigging called ice pigging as a way to help expedite the removal of the historical deposits that have been built up in our system for many years. We chose to partner with American Pipeline Solutions. Okay, and so contracting with American Pipeline Solution, it was estimated that the Port Ludlow system would need approximately 20 loads of ice. But then if additional loads might be needed, they'd be at a cost of about $14,000 per additional load. So the initial cost with mobilization and the fee for the 20 loads came to roughly $347,000. So approved by the Washington Utilities and Transportation Commission, the UTC, if you don't know, they're tasked with ensuring that investor-owned utilities are providing safe, reliable, and fairly priced services. And they approved a 70-30 split between the customer base and OWSI. 70% carried by the customers and 30% carried by OWSI. With that approval came an update to our tariff, particularly Schedule 9 of our tariff. If you're unaware of the tariff and how it kind of works, our tariff is the guiding document for not only OWSI, but for the customers that we serve, right? And both of us have to abide by the tariff. The update in Schedule 9 has to do with surcharge, where OWSI gets to recoup that 70% from the community. The tariff states that a payment was used as an estimate. The initial filing and the approval was an estimate, and that upon completion, the surcharge could be adjusted up or down depending on the final price of the project. So we ended up using 5 additional loads of ice, costing us an extra $70,000. And good news for our customer base, Olympic Water and Sewer has opted not to adjust the surcharge, and we have covered the cost of the extra loads of ice. On top of that, when we choose to go about raising rates, we have to put in a rate case before the UTC and get approved for that. And having had a rate case this past year for rate increase and the ice pigging surcharge that will be on there for the next 2 years, in 2026, I got another slide, I'm getting ahead of myself here. We're also not going to go in for a rate case this next year. So how does the ice pigging did our best to get to all of the system, and I'm going to say that we got 85 or 90%. But there was some runs that we were unable to pick, right? We had some long runs from the Teal Lake Reservoir down to Woodridge Village, for example. Okay? There was no place for us to inject ice at the reservoir and then have it discharge. We had to be very strategic about how we went about doing it. It required us to isolate different sections, turn water off, inject the ice, and then valve things back in the street to push that ice along. So every single run of ice was sampled, and you can see that on the different bottles there. Water before the run, pretty clear. Water during the run coming out really dark and then getting better until the final, when we were done with that run, was a much better product. And visually you might not see it from bottle to bottle, but the lab results show, and I'll share those with you here in a second. So every single run of ice was sampled, and the results were pretty astonishing. And what we ended up doing, or American Pipeline Solution ended up doing, was that the worst or longest run of every day had samples sent to an independent third-party laboratory for analysis. So they ended up, of all the runs, sending off 21 samples to the independent laboratory. It was either from the longest run of the day or the run that they felt had the most sediment in it, right? The darkest bottle. And I went through every single one of these to read the reports and whatnot, and I'm happy to share. You guys paid for the service, but you can take my word as a water professional on it. Every run had almost identical results. It had almost identical contaminants and the amount of contaminants in that. So it's pretty uniform across our system. I don't know if I can make that a whole lot bigger for you, but I will provide Jeff with my presentation, and we will post this presentation on the OWSI website so you can look closer. I know it's tough to see. But on this side, if you could, you can see that the samples for this particular run made on May 8th, there is pre-clean and post-clean data on that chart there with the bottles. Pre-clean and post-clean data such as turbidity. At the beginning of this particular run, the turbidity from the clear bottle in the beginning, so that's what it would be normally in the system, was 16.05 NTU, nephelometric turbidity units. And by the time the run was done, and that push came through, the clear bottle on the end had a turbidity of 4.95. Okay. The turbidity is basically how cloudy, how tough it is to see through it. Right? So just in that one run, you had 12 NTU drop there. So immediately we could see that this was working. Some of those came directly from the analysis at the back of the ice pigging truck. So we could see real-time results as the pigging was actually taking place. In this table, you can also see that the total volume of water that was flushed out of the system during that run. So that particular run moved 24,251 gallons of water. So that's the water to start the push, that's the ice itself, and then the water that was needed to flush all the ice and the salinity back out of the system to be ready to put back in service. We moved a lot of water for 25 days, multiple runs a day. We did some serious flushing. So the lab results. Beyond, there was biological and chemical analysis performed at the laboratory. The chemical analysis confirmed our suspicions, and that we knew all along, that iron and manganese were the major components of contamination in our system. This particular result from that day on the 8th, the test results showed 40% manganese oxide, and showed 30% iron oxide and 25% calcium carbonate. Calcium carbonate is something that we haven't really talked about a whole bunch. It's a very common mineral in our water distribution systems. It can cause scale buildup. It can cause that scale buildup in piping. Reduces the water flow, reduces the efficiency. This happens when hard water that's real high in calcium and bicarbonate leads to precipitation of that calcium carbonate, particularly when there's big pH or temperature changes. And so the scale can be quite problematic. However, in a really aged system or places that have a lot of deterioration, that scale sometimes can prevent leaks, right? So if you think about, I got this really old rusty pipe, we have a lot of galvanized service lines. That's the main component to our leaks throughout the year. Has to do with our galvanized lines failing. So if they happen to have this calcium carbonate scale, they might not leak for a while until that scale flakes off. Right? So there was a large portion of that along with the iron and manganese. So the biological analysis, it showed something interesting. It showed that there was manganese oxidizing bacteria, specifically, I won't try to pronounce it properly, Gallionella and Leptopix. The Gallionella secrete this iron oxide hydroxide byproduct. And when they shed their stalks, they result in surges of red water, which we experience in Port Ludlow. Okay? The Leptopix, they have these sheaths on the outside of them. And they store this iron in the outside of their sheaths. And when they have a lot of iron stored in their sheaths, they show up red. This is what they look like. So, the manganese oxide. The highlight here on the yellow is that microbial activity, right? The bacteria can also directly oxidize dissolved manganese, especially in an area with low disinfection levels. That becomes kind of important here in a little bit, leading up to slime and deposit buildup. And one of the management and prevention techniques is aggressive cleaning technique like ice bathing. I didn't write that, I clipped that off the internet. It just means we made the right choice to try to address our problem, right? And the iron oxide, when you're talking about iron bacteria, those iron oxidizing bacteria consume dissolved iron and create a red, brown, black slimy deposits, leading to blockages and poor water quality. Grab my glasses for a second. It's getting fuzzier the longer I stand up there. Okay, and so management and control of the iron oxidizing and they are not associated with causing disease. These bacteria, they're naturally occurring, and they can be found in soil, surface water, and groundwater. That's our source water. We get our potable water before any treatment or filtration out of the ground. So, what are our options? Okay, we talked about management practices in the pigging and high doses of chlorine. Okay, just because we did the ice pigging, the color complaints have not stopped. They haven't stopped completely. However, the number of complaints that we have received has been greatly reduced. OWSI can continue to try to help mitigate the color caused by these oxidizing bacteria, but our options are kind of limited. We can hit you with high doses of chlorine, right? We can dose real high or low. We can make it so that the part per million residual that we carry to our end user, to our customer, is much higher. But there's no doubt in my mind that the complaints that I get will then be for taste and odor. You send swimming pool water my way, stop it, right? So maybe you have less color, because you have higher chlorine. Homeowners, they can help themselves. They can help their aesthetics, right, by installing some sort of home filter. I met with a couple of ladies the other day. They called, they said, hey, when I run the bath over here, I got little kids who have toddlers, and when I run my hot water, I have this issue where the water gets colored in the bath. And so I went there to help diagnose and see what it was. We did find out that it was concentrated to their hot water, and that their hot water system needed to be. But I was able to reassure them, from the scientific research, that the iron and manganese oxidizing bacteria are not health hazards, and it was okay for them to bathe their little ones in the bath. Individual home filtration is going to be your best bet to get rid of the color. Right? We still have some in our distribution system, and the iron feeding and manganese oxidizing bacteria aren't just going to disappear from our aquifer. One of the biggest complaints that we got throughout the entire ice pigging project and during our flushing operations in general is that people were either unaware of our operations or that they were aware of the project but they didn't know when we would be in their neighborhood. Okay? The OWSI website is updated regularly about upcoming work. Please look at it regularly. And for any upcoming work that's going to be in your area. But more importantly, you can sign up for the free alert media. It's the only real-time communication platform that OWSI uses. You are not going to get notifications from OWSI from platforms like Facebook and Nextdoor. We don't use it. OWSI is diligent about sending out daily notifications at the start of operations, the operations team workday, to try to inform our customers about what neighborhood we'll be in when we're doing these types of projects. It's also how we send out our emergency notifications. If we have a main line break, if we need to put out a boil water notice, right? It's going to come through the alert media. Signing up for it's free. And it's pretty easy. You can go to our website and sign up for notifications. At the end of today's presentation, you can scan the QR code to sign up for notifications. And if either one of those things is too much, you can come into our main office, and there's a team member in our main office that will gladly help you. Okay? Fill this out on paper, and they'll do the data entry there at the main office. So, FYI, if you were unaware, we are currently flushing on the north side of our system. in the morning if they're gonna be on my street. And beyond that, the guys do put out signs, right? You drive by and there's signs. If you're at home and you're leaving for the day, you may not have seen the sign yet, right? So. On the topic of our website, you can find all sorts of other useful information on our website, particularly regarding the quality of our water and the efficiency of our system. So all of our consumer confidence reports can be found there. The most recent one that was issued was the 2024. You say, hey, it's almost 2026. How come the most recent data was 2024? The year has to come to completion, and then that year's data is reported by mid-year the next year. So the 2024 came out in the middle of 2025. There you can also find our water use efficiency, so you can see how good we are managing our water, from what we pumped out of the ground to what we billed for and what got lost along the way. We have a team member in the second year of his apprenticeship. So OWSI operator Timothy Muth has entered the second and final year of his apprenticeship program. We partner with Evergreen Rural Water of Washington, and that's what he looks like. So if you see him out, when you're out and about, if you see him working out in the field, you guys can say hello to him and give him attaboy. So 2025, we'll go through the different sections of our system and the different things that we manage and give you a couple of the highlights. If you get the voice, I've been writing quarterly articles to try to do this throughout the year to give you guys little snapshots of the things that happened in the last quarter. So if you've been reading your voice articles, some of this might just be a recap of that. So I talked about the water use efficiency. So through our production and billing data number crunching, OWSI noticed discrepancies in the unaccounted for water numbers and water efficiency percentage. As a community, when we updated our water system plan, we set some goals together. We set some goals, right? Shooting for less than 10%, and then we dropped it to be under 9% water use efficiency. So we had a discrepancy in our numbers, and so we undertook a calibration and verification of flow in all of our source meters. And what we found is that the meters at well 2 and well 4 were severely under-registering. They were under-registering by about 30 gallons a minute. This is why when we talk about our meter replacement program, old meters under-register. Right? When people complain about their bill and we put in a new meter and their bill goes up, that's because the old meter was under-registering. Which might be a benefit to a customer, but for me managing the utility, what I pull out of the ground, right, I'm responsible for those water rates. What I pull out of the ground and what I bill for, they got to match up within a certain percentage. Our goal was better than 9% loss, right? And so the source meters at wells 2 and 4, they're underperforming, and I'm happy to report the installation of our 2 new ultrasonic flow meters, and the numbers immediately look better. And our reservoirs got some telemetry upgrades. So to address a corrective action plan in coordination that was implemented by the Department of Health from our last sanitary survey, OWSI successfully installed new telemetry at both reservoirs A and reservoir C. That's on Talbot in the middle of the RV storage and up by the golf course pro shop. And for the first time, our operations team can see real-time levels from the app on our cell phone, and we will receive alarms if the reservoir levels get too low. I'm going to pause my slideshow here. I did not try to sign on to be available. Did somebody give you the beach club password so I can share something off there?
It should be right next to my tablet, it's the little sheet.
No.
Small little piece.
I don't think it's better.
A little sheet. Cheat sheet.
Also, Jason, you're at 3:35, so just making sure we have time for questions.
Yeah. Okay. One of the things that came from our ice pigging and I don't know why you're getting that, I only have one screen.
Well, if it's a desert, maybe that's the commentary.
We're gonna have to go with that. I'll happily show you afterwards if you want to look at my phone. How about that? One of the things that came from ice pigging the ice pigging, which was a huge undertaking for our operations team, and I feel like it was a very successful venture in removing those massive amounts of historical buildup. One of the bonus things that came from the project was OWSI is now GIS mapping our system, right? And so instead of all of the old, tattered blueprints that are coffee stained and ripped, we are now able to work with a company called Diamond Maps, who is web-based, and we have basically mapped all of our water mains and the equipment on the water side of the system. With that GIS mapping technology, we're now started mapping our sewer system, and we're going to be able to share that technology with the golf course so that they can do their infrastructure. This year we had leak repairs. We repaired main line and service line leaks in 11 different locations. Admiralty Condos, Montgomery, Baldwin, Adventurer, Resolute, Camino, Pioneer, Wheeler, Sparrow, and Condon. And so the operations team was busy with leaks this year. And I can say with certainty that all of those repairs were made with minimal service interruption. Kudos to our working relationship together. For the first time ever, OWSI had 100% compliance with our backflow assembly testing. Reminder that reports are due every year by June 1st due to Terra Fool number 24. And while not every report was turned in on time, every backflow assembly was tested and no one was subject to disconnection for non-compliance. In regard to our cross-connection program, to be in compliance, our UTC tariff schedule number 8, OWSI mailed cross-connection surveys to all of its customers this last year. Okay. All customers shall be surveyed as to the existence of cross-connection. Customers who fail to respond to the survey shall be issued a second survey, and if they fail to respond, shall be subject to the non-response options and assess charges set forth in the tariff. All new customers shall be required to fill out a survey as part of an application for water service. They can be site visits. We can make you install a backflow assembly if you don't need it because you didn't respond to the survey. We can start the disconnection of service, right, if you don't respond. It goes on to say that the utility shall resurvey no less than every 5 years, and for each customer that meets the requirement of the WAC, the utility shall conduct a site visit and a premise inspection, charges to the customer set forth in the tariff. Our tariff requires 100% return rate on these surveys. Okay? I don't want to disconnect anyone's service because they didn't fill out a survey. Of the 1,800 surveys that we mailed out, I don't think we received 200. Robert, yeah? I don't think we got 200 back. So OWSI is going to do a second mailing, but to make things easy, the survey has also been uploaded on our website. Okay? We only have about a half a dozen operators when we're fully staffed. Conducting site visits and hazard inspections on every customer that doesn't respond to the survey is an arduous task. It takes away from our other tasks. If we can achieve 100% compliance on backflow assembly testing, I think we can do better on filling out a survey. So I'm pleading for your help on this one. If you are an HOA president, please get this out to the HOA, the people that live in your community.
Jason, would you explain what the backflow is?
Can you wait for that?
Okay.
Okay. On our collection system, so early in 2025, the complete overhaul of lift station number 8 came to fruition. It got new electrical components, pumps, and discharge piping. Lift station number 11, our newest lift station, and the OT2 Phase 2 development was brought online, and it received its mission control telemetry. In our goal to rehab 10 lift stations in 10 years, we have all the materials currently to rehab lift station number 9 next. Every year, OWSI strives to clean 1/5 of our sewer collection system. This involves jetting the sewer lines with a Vector truck and vacuuming out the debris. We successfully did that this year. We have contracted out that work year after year. We used to use Provac, we used Badger, and the 4 years that I've been here, that price has almost doubled. It cost us nearly $25,000 to have that truck and crew out for 1 week. But I'm happy to say that we have a new to us back truck. So we were able to buy a back truck at auction, and I'd like to give a shout out to Dennis from Tenino Telephone Company. They're the ones that put the truck up for auction, and Dennis was kind enough today to come out and walk the operators through the operations in the valley and stuff on the truck, which is always really nice. So
What was the cost of this?
we got the truck at auction for $25,000. We put $10,000 into it to make sure it was DOT compliant, right? And it will have some other associated costs. Sending our big CDL trucks to the shop so that they can have DOT compliance, that costs us about $10,000 a truck a year just to keep them compliant, regular maintenance, right? So hopefully we will recoup the cost of subbing that out, and we can do that cleaning in-house next year. Should also help us with our leak repairs. We saw a lot of activity at our wastewater treatment plant this past Our biosolids permit was renewed. We participated in PFAS sampling and testing with the Department of Ecology. We had a very past due inspection with Ecology, and we were issued a new discharge permit. So our new discharge permit added several new testing parameters and set limits for the total pounds of nitrogen that we're allowed to put into the bay. Aeration basin number 1 got a new wheel mixer. Aeration basin number 2 and the lower digester got some much needed repairs done to their aeration manifolds that supply the process airflow. And blower 1 received a new variable frequency drive. On the water side, OWSI continues to have lofty goals for the 2026 calendar. We look to continue our water meter replacement program, which we're taking those old under-registering brass meters out of service and replacing them with new electronic radio read meters. Our plan, our in-house goal is to try to average 1 meter a day or better for 2026. In an effort to maintain adequate fire flows and protection for the community, we are planning on trying to replace at least 4 or 5 hydrants this next year, starting with the oldest hydrants first. We do have some rather old hydrants in our system. They still work, but we'd like to get them before they start to fail. OWSI is scheduled to replace another fleet vehicle. You're going to see some new trucks driving around. Lost the spot. I changed the slide. Well, that's why. We are scheduled to replace another fleet vehicle in 26. We have a few new trucks out there. I'm going to do my best to get some badging or some new magnets on them so that you know that it's us. You can tell that guy to slow down. If our water system plan gets approved, I will do my best to apply for the planning and engineering loan in an effort to secure some longevity on our north side of our system. OWSI's general sewer plan is due for an update. The last formal update to our general sewer plan was done in 1990. A lot has changed here in Port Ludlow since then, and future growth requires the update. And so the engineering for that is not cheap. The costs are estimated to be over $100,000. In our efforts to overhaul 10 lift stations in 10 years, as I noted, next on the list is lift station 9 and the wastewater treatment plant. The wastewater treatment plant is in need of some love. The original plant was constructed in 1969. And it was constructed in 69 to treat an average daily flow of 60,000 gallons per day. We currently have about an average flow of about 200,000 gallons a day. Upgrades to that wastewater treatment plant began in 1980 and most of them were completed in 1989. The third aeration basin, I believe, was added in 2011. The third aeration basin that was added doubled the plant's hydraulic capacity to 640,000 gallons a day, only to have that cut in half to 320,000 gallons per day in the permit that was issued in 2013. And it was cut in half due to inadequate digestion. This past year, the Department of Ecology completed the task of plant inspection and an issuing of a new discharge permit. Okay. The inspection was completed on June 5th by Department of Ecology representatives Isaiah Morel Thomas, who's our new regional, and Dave Dougherty, that's who he's replacing, and myself. We passed our inspection, but the DOE officials identified a few major areas of concern. That's how they is going to have to grow with it. We did pass our inspection, and we did get our new permit, and it was issued October of 25 here, and this month, November 1st, that new permit went into effect. The new permit has some important submittals that are coming up in 2026. We need infiltration and inflow evaluations. We need operations and maintenance manual updates, comprehensive updates. And we are scheduled to put in a report for a progress report for how we're going to restore full capacity. Along with that, we have some added testing requirements and have a new total nitrogen limit for the effluent that's discharged into the bay. The nitrogen limit is based upon our past performance, and as was told to us by the Department of Ecology, will never be increased. So, what's the plan? What's the plan for full capacity? So, OWSI is currently working with our engineering partner, BHC Consultants, on a plan to regain that full capacity and upgrade our treatment techniques to address our nitrogen limits. First, OWSI will address the Department of Ecology areas of concern and take care of those 2026 submittals. This means overhauling some of the dated and broken equipment identified in the inspection report. Second is the update of our general sewer plan. The Department of Ecology will not accept any engineering reports for upgrade to the plan without that general sewer plan. BHC Consultants will simultaneously work on documents and blueprints that we can put out to bid for a phase 1 upgrade. And phase 1 would involve the construction of new aerobic digesters for solids handling, helping us regain our hydraulic capacity, so we get back to that 640,000. Sometime after that, we'll do engineering for a phase 2 upgrade that will address our treatment process. Well, and what's that word thing? Cost for a phase 1 upgrade, approximately $3.5 million. When we did engineering to begin with, an entire plant upgrade to new best technologies was $15 million. It's a little bit tough to pass 70% of that on to you all at once. Right? So we're going to try to do this in phases. That big dollar figure doesn't go away, it's just going to be knocked down into chunks. Right? Phase 1, we're looking at $3.5 million. So what's that going to do to my bill? Right? You already raise my sewer bill every year a percentage because staffing and the cost of materials and just keeping it going. Surcharge is looking to start sometime in 26 for this $3.5 million. And what it's going to look like for you is going to be about $10 a month extra, $20 per billion cycle for how long? As long as the loan is, right?
Well, that's calculated for 20 years, and interest at 7, which is banks right now at like 7.5.
Those numbers come on a 20-year loan at 7% interest. It's long overdue. The first plant was built in '69. So, on behalf of the Liquid Water and Sewer and our operations team, I'd like to reaffirm our commitment to the community. Every day we strive to uphold our mission and embody the values that define us as an organization. We take pride in providing safe, reliable service, strengthening our relationships with each other, and doing our best to deliver excellence, not only to our team, but to the guests, the community, and our stakeholders, because we have stakeholders. As promised, on the next slide, you'll find a QR code to sign up for notifications. Real quick, I would like to point a spotlight again on Operations Supervisor Robert Whalen. Had the pleasure of working with him over the last couple of years. Robert has an opportunity to advance his career, and he's decided to take it. So he's going to be departing us at the end of the month. And I know you all have had interactions with him out in the field and his team, and he's done a wonderful job for us, and I want to thank him for his service to this community. Questions?
The cross connection, would you talk a little bit about, I think people don't know what that is when we hear doing a survey?
So our cross connection program is a program that's in place. It's mandated by the Department of Health so that we can protect against any type of back pressure or back siphonage from the water system to our water system. So if you have an irrigation system with sprinklers, if you have a grinder pump for your sewer, there are hazards. If you have a swimming pool or a hot tub or a whole laundry list of things, if you pose a hazard to contaminating the community water system through activities on your property, you are required by law to have a backflow assembly. Keeps the water safe for everybody.
Okay, so when you're talking about the double check valve, are you required to have that for a whole house system, or is that just for potential contaminating sources, like a non-air gap sink?
So in the survey, there's a list of, do you have a boat tied up to your house? Do you have a hot tub? Do you have a swimming pool? Do you have an irrigation system? Do you have, and that's what we go by. So a lot of times when a home is built, they don't do the landscaping, right? And then a year or two later, somebody puts in an irrigation system. Well, we don't know because nobody told us, right? The type of backflow assembly that needs to be installed is directly related to what the hazard at hand, whether it's high health, and the application that it is, whether it's a back pressure or a back siphonage that could occur. So there are several different backflow assemblies. They have to be tested, and they have to be tested annually. What makes it a backflow assembly is its ability to be tested instead of just a device that you might screw on your hose with.
Hang on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
Talk to
did
her,
not
please.
choose.
Okay, I appreciate Mary asking that question to have you clarify that, because one of the issues I find is you all know your business, we don't know your business, and I wish there was sometimes better communication. I remember when that thing came in the mail and we looked at each other and said, what? I didn't understand one word of that. Maybe that's me, but I'm guessing I'm not alone. And if things were communicated more clearly with more background information and description so we could make sense of it, because I ended up calling you folks to say, well, what is this? I don't get this. And I don't know how many of those phone calls you got, but I'm guessing I wasn't the only one.
So my business cards are on the table by the door. Calling me is the best way to have a conversation to discuss and learn about anything that's going on in our system. 100%. Without me holding a class on backflow assemblies, right? Without me teaching a multi-hour class to get the community to come learn about backflow assembly, as individuals, you know, a cursory Google search goes so far, but my phone's always on. You guys can come see me during business hours at the main office. You can leave me a message. I will call you back.
Question about the ice picking contaminants when they came out of the line. Where did those contaminants go?
So when we did the ice picking, the discharge of the ice, they They were carried out with it. Just like with our flushing program, only we were able to move more of it at the same time. Is it in the bay? I'm sure it all makes its way into the bay, right? Portland goes like this. It was originally in the ground, right? That's where it came from. It came from in our well. Right. So we're putting it back on the ground.
But anything that went into the sewer system goes to the wastewater treatment plant.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So we just would have processed. The bigger concern would have been the salinity. It would have the lesser concern would have been the iron and manganese that came out of the ground, out of our wells to begin with. It would have been the high salt content that was needed to create the ice. And I did not witness or get reports of any adverse effects from the salty ice melting. I didn't see anybody's lawn or ditch line or anything die, right?
Cool. Also going to be on kind of the ice picking, flushing. When you do standard flushing, do you also do like a sampling like you saw with the ice picking where you do it before, kind of during, after, or is it in kind of identifying what came out? Or does it look similar, I guess, when you're doing standard flushing? Or is it just not quite as...
It does not look that dark. So we have maybe a light tea color that somebody calls and says, hey, I have color going on in my house right now. It's a little bit rusty, you know. When we go out to a hydrant, what we will do is we will flush that hydrant until we get rid of all the color before we move on. So when you talk about those iron oxidizing, manganese oxidizing bacteria, when you talk about those structures like shedding their sheaths or whatnot and creating a plume, or if you have scale on the inside of your pipe that breaks loose, and it moves its way down the system, right? And so we try to get ahead of it to remove it from the system before it can move farther down. When it was bad, before the ice picking, when it was really bad, I could get a call and I could tell you where my next couple of calls were going to come from because of how our system flows. So no, we don't send something off to the lab every time we flush. Our water quality monitoring schedule, which is our outline for all of our sampling and testing, the majority of that has us test at the source before it goes into the distribution system. There are a few tests that we take out, lead and copper, disinfection byproducts, those come from out in the distribution system. Our total coliforms, our total coliforms that we take every month, they come from representative places. But we don't send stuff off to the lab every time we flush. We've done it enough now that we know what's there and we know what we're removing. And when it's clear, it's good.
Yeah, Jason, my question is well capacity. You mentioned we're getting some more telemetry. Will that help us understand more about what's happening with the aquifers? And is that a concern?
The telemetry we got was to monitor our above ground reservoirs so that we could monitor the level of the water that we've already put into the system that's there for storage, there for demand use, there for fire flow. So that's the telemetry that I was referring to, not telemetry monitoring the aquifer. We do monitor the aquifer. The guys sound the wells and check the levels every month. We also monitor some outside wells outside of the MPR for things like chloride and conductivity to make sure there's no seawater intrusion making its way into our aquifer. My concern is not so much as there's not enough water in the aquifer, as more lies within as our infrastructure might start to age or our wells decline. They all have a lifespan, and so just because a well gets old and it doesn't produce like it once did, or the equipment starts to age out, my concern for longevity is more along those lines. We need to get the water out of the ground, and where are we going to do that?
regarding the wells, is there a limit as to how many households our wells can support? Or can we keep adding? It seems to be related to the amount, or the sewer side of it as well.
As the master plan resort community, right, we abide by the master plan. The master plan has a limit on how many connections we can have. 2,250?
2,250.
And there's some accounting for numbers slightly higher than that due to businesses and whatnot, and the equivalent that a business or a church might contribute, right? As far as the water, we have water rights. The water rights are put forth by the Department of Ecology. We have to draw our share of water in line with those water rights. So we can take so many thousands of acre feet a year out of the ground. We can only take it out of the ground so fast. So every one of my sources and every one of my wells individually has water rights associated with the well. It says I can only pump out of the ground so many gallons a minute, and I can only take so many acre feet out of the ground a year. We have enough water rights to build out our connections. We just need to be able to continue to get it out.
You winced when you talked about galvanized piping. So how much is in the area? What is the concern for replacement? And are you gradually replacing those upon your repairs?
So galvanized service lines were the industry standard for many years, 60s, 70s, led into the 80s. There's a lot of galvanized service lines throughout our system. I wasn't here constructing during that time, so I can't tell you exactly how many service lines. What I can tell you is that our leaks are more often than not associated with a failed galvanized service line or fitting. And what we do when we repair those, we don't just repair the galvanized line. We abandon them. We put in a brand new service line of poly pipe. They get new brass fittings, and that way it's going to have longevity. Now, if I know that there's a street that has, all of Highland Drive originally had galvanized, it becomes the cost associated with a major project like that. The team that I have, and it's a manpower thing, as much as anything. I can't stop all of my other day-to-day operations to undertake a large-scale project like that. If we outsource that, it comes at a great cost. It would eventually be recuperated through the next rate case, right? Or if it's a big enough project, you'd see another surcharge, like for the ice cream. So it's a balance. Every time we repair something, we no longer use that, we use the best technologies. So slowly they're getting replaced as they fail.
How many gallons per day are being used seasonally, summer versus winter usage?
As far as what we draw out of the ground, maybe I can tell you. I can give you an exact number if you follow up with me on that, because I can show you production numbers. You can also look at our water use efficiency report on the website, and it's going to show you production numbers as well. Ask another question, and I'll look if I can find it while you guys are.
This is just a curiosity. About 3 weeks ago, I was down near the undeveloped portion of OT2, Phase 2, and there was a small army of vehicles and people with gear to locate gear. And included were a vehicle from Cascadia Water and one from city of Bainbridge Island. I'm just wondering if you can tell us, and this was for infrastructure that was only, the as-built were approved in the last year or so, and it was only accepted by OWSI within the last year. So is there anything you can enlighten us on that?
I don't think anything from my side.
We were up there due to the locate training. Everybody held.
Oh, okay.
So OWSI was part of a locate training that we had held. So we had multiple agencies come in, and due to that, with people not ever doing locating, and we just took them to an area where there was tracer wire, where there was good places to locate. So that's what we were doing out there.
We actually got a couple of people certified during that, right, Robert?
Yeah.
Jason, I have a couple of questions for you. Okay. I was looking at the old water plan from probably 2005 or 2006, and again in 2015. And it had fire flow improvement, Paradise Bay Road, Phase 1, 930 feet. Fire flow improvement, Paradise Bay, Phase 2, 1,700 feet. This was in 2009, I think it was when scheduled, was pushed out in 2015, and then it disappeared. Okay, and as far as I know, that was never done. So is there a problem down there with fire flow and hydrants? Do we know?
If I look in my database, I can find some old fire flow testing and whatnot. I can't speak to projects that were planned or not planned by people that were in my position prior to me getting here, or how that played out. I really can't speak to it because I don't know. What I do know is that I have a master list of our hydrants and the dates that they were put in. I know that finding maintenance parts for some of those, they don't make them anymore, right? And so fire protection and having enough firefighting storage in our reservoirs, and the Jefferson County Fire Department having enough flow in case there's an emergency is really important, right? It's public safety. The fire chief, fire marshal, who's the highest one up in that system? Signed off on our water system plan update, affirming that we had adequate services and flow for their needs. That doesn't take away from the fact that we need to update our aged infrastructure, right? And so they were able to sign off on our water system plan update with no concerns of that. I can't tell you when the next time we will do full-blown fire flow testing from hydrant to hydrant. Again, it is a huge undertaking if we don't outsource it.
So can I ask you to check and figure out why that was on for 2 times and then disappeared? I'll give you the information on that.
Sure.
My second question is one that you, again, keep kicking the can down the road. And you referenced it earlier today when there were 11 major areas of leaks in North Bay. So the North Bay infrastructure was put in 66, 67, 6 years old. The water mains are asbestos pipes. Yes, they are safe, but they're 10 years beyond their longevity. As Olympic Water and Sewer, they should have been putting money aside to replace these over the years. To the best of my knowledge, they haven't. You reference it on all your water plans to replace these, and then kick it out another 6 years. So it was on there in 2009 or 2006, 2015, and so forth. Again, in the latest water plan, 2032, 2033. Okay. By that time, you're looking at 65 or 70 years. So when are you going to get that project done. You spent money on the cove, putting that in, Olympic Terrace 2 for the infrastructure. North Bay needs that. When that's gonna come about?
That is a fair concern, and I have no argument for you on the state. It's a statement of fact. Okay? I do know that currently, with current industry standards, it is over $1 million a mile to put in new water mains. That's what I know.
So if we have a major failure,
Well, we had a couple of pretty good breaks. They weren't due to it sitting in the ground and failing. The two of our biggest breaks came from a contractor trying to build new homes, right? Where the pipe went when it was undermined. So, unfortunately, the way that it goes here sometimes is when it fails, it gets fixed, or when it fails, it gets replaced. Believe me, it is hard for me to manage a system like this as well.
Just curious, what you wind up doing with telemetry?
We use partner with a company that are web-based as well called Mission Controls, and that allows us to see from afar. The 2 units that we put on the 2 new reservoirs, they have a battery life of 2 to 5 years before they need to be replaced because we didn't have any AC power there.
And second, congratulations on your successful digging.
Oh, thank you.
Just one thing I'd like to point out is sure, we could say, we'll go replace all the water mains, sounds good, right? But that comes back to you as the user. We only have about 7 to 80 users. So when you start talking 4 million, 8 million, 12 million, 15 million, 1, can you get a loan on it? 2, what's your interest rate? Because, well, on the water side, we could go to the drinking and we can get a reduced interest rate, but it still comes back to the users of the system. So what we do is we try to take what's the best decision to do with what this is right now. If it's not having any problems, it's still working, then we're leaving it. If there's a break or we have to do a repair, then we go in and we make the product better and we make it so that it will last a lot longer. So, it's that balance and looking at, what do we need to work on and what's the capacity of the community, because you're not only looking at water, you're looking at wastewater. So we have both sides going on. We did the filtration project, gosh, like 2021, and then the wastewater treatment plant, 3.5 is probably going to be 27, maybe 26, depending on the sewer plant. But then there's ones behind that, right? So what else is coming? What else? Nitrogen. Nitrogen is going to be a huge issue. And that's regulatory. We have no choice but to abide by whatever they say. It's regulatory. So that cost alone could be $5 million. So, how do we work through this and how do we make sure? So it's not that we're not looking at this. It's not that we're not every day thinking about how can we do this better. What do we need to do? It's just that we also have to look at our community and what can be supported.
Production?
Well, just a comment on that, Diana. We're here in the Beach Club, and we have a reserve fund, so we save for the roof. We save actually to do the plumbing, the electricity. When we do that over a number of years, because we know it's going to wear out. I don't believe Olympic Water and Sewer does that. They don't have a reserve fund. Everything is just plain operations. And, when they said, hooray, 70-30, we're also paying the 30%, okay? So 70% is the surcharge that we're doing. The other 30% we're paying in there anyway. It's our money. We're paying 100% of that, so to speak. So for years now, Olympic Water and Sewer hasn't put in a reserve fund for those contingencies. Everything has been operational. Isn't that correct? correct?
They
Okay?
don't have reserve.
Okay, everybody hear that? They don't have a reserve. Okay? So if anything major happens, it's on us. So if it's going to be nitrogen and it's 5 million, okay, expect your sewer bills to go up, double or something. I'm not sure on that. So just to make that clear. I also should say this to Jason. Ice pigging, I was a big fan of it, and you guys did a great job in a short amount of time, and I think you ought to get applause for that.
Thank you. I had
This sort of builds on the reserve fund question. So is there a capital facilities program that you operate from that would identify anticipated capital expenditures and would at least anticipate them? Or are they just whenever you come up, you have to come up with an increase in funds, special assessment, or whatever? Would it make sense to have to do it in a more programmatically?
Would it make more sense? Yes, possibly. Tracking your infrastructure and knowing that when you install something that it has a lifespan and starting to save for that, from the time that it's installed to the time that you know it needs to be replaced is absolutely, if it could be the best practice available, would be the best practice available. It doesn't work that way for us. We don't have a large capital reserve account. Right? There's more to Port Ludlow and Port Ludlow Associates than just the utility. Right? We are a wholly owned subsidiary of Port Ludlow Associates. We don't operate independently of Port Ludlow Associates. So every year I put together a budget. In that budget, I have capital planning for the next 5 years, shoot out to 10 years, and we do the best we can to achieve the capital improvement projections that we put forward. Who wanted to know about my production numbers?
We're gonna take a couple minutes to get him unplugged the web board and get to,
Haven't seen you in many, many years. But Fred keeps mentioning. Thank you. Right now. Yes, yeah, yeah. I see him walking. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I see him doing course. Yes, yeah. He's doing
No, maybe you would. I kicked you off.
Thanks.
Is that what you check with your That's If you roll over and as soon as she started seeing the sun, she was sneezing. What is that?
All right, guys, we can get started.
Are you tired?
All right, we're going to call the board meeting to order at 4:28. Before we get quickly to stakeholder reports, I just want to take a minute to recognize or welcome our new board members. As of 2 weeks ago, Chris will be joining our utilities committee, Colleen, who is taking on the role of secretary, and Gary, who is going to be our treasurer. Is our treasurer, yes. If you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do. If I can get to 50 subscribers, I don't have to bring my laptop and I can stream from a phone, which would be super handy. So subscribe and then turn off notifications. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to make this a really quick meeting because we had our annual meeting last week or 2 weeks ago, last month, and all the committees reported anyway. So we're going to start with stakeholders, and we'll start with Diana. If you're ready. If you're ready. You can take, I think this one's still on. Yeah. And just over here.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for sitting through that. Glad to see some people stayed. My hearing aids are echoing. Oh, it's big. So we're gearing down for the season as we kind of go into a slower time. However, we have a lot of events going on, so trying to keep things busy for the community to come to. So we have $10 wine tasting at the end, the second Tuesday, so next week. We have a wine dinner on the 20th. We, of course, are doing Thanksgiving. The fun thing about Thanksgiving is if you come in-house, we send you home with leftovers, because that's the problem with going out, right? But we also offer a takeout version, so if you don't want to be out, you want to sit in your comfy home, you now have that option too. And then thinking about Christmas, like I've started to go to some craft fairs and bazaars, trying to figure out, oh, what am I doing for Christmas? Just a reminder that the marina, the inn, and the golf course all have retail. And they have different types of retail. So I know at the golf course, there's glasses, hats, there's an ornament, there's some other little things like that. At the marina, they have children's books and some children's items. And they also have glassware, and I have kind of serving platter type thing. It's mud pie. You might be familiar with mud pie. And then at the end, of course, we have the bath salts and hand salts, and there's some jewelry. We have the artist lead pictures in there, so if you're looking for art, and with bathrobes and some clothing. All of the outlets have clothing, of course. But anyways, just to remind you that that's available, and the golf course is having a sale, December 9th through the 14th. Kind of fun event. The members probably have some credits online, so we're also trying to get the members to come in, spend their credits. And then, of course, the tree lighting, the 5th annual tree lighting at the Village Center will occur on December 6th. We'll have caroling, we'll have hopefully, well, for sure have cookies and hot chocolate. We're also asking some of the businesses to contribute something. You know, we're excited to see that kind of step up a little bit, I think, even this year, with what I've seen with the pet parade and all the other things happening, which is really good. And the boat parade at the marina will decorate, the boats will have like an internal judging, but on December 20th, they will actually have the boat parade, Santa, and just a nice little event bonfire. So if you want to come out and see that, that would be really fun. And then the inn still has happy hour from 2 to 5 every day. And the happy hour is great because it's $5 beer and wine, $6 beer and wine. And they have some craft cocktails, mocktails. They have light fare, and then they have some heavier meals. So if you just want to get an early dinner in, want to have that. And then we also brought back our sunset dinners, which is a 3-course, and it goes from 3 to 5, Monday through Thursday. And if you haven't signed up for our newsletter has all this information in it. It comes out once a month. We do not sell your email or anything, but it keeps you apprised of events happening, as well as any special, or sometimes we do a contest and we give away a great gift. I think it was truffles last time. They said identify these. So if you haven't signed up, please do. And I'll take any questions.
What time is the boat parade on December 20th?
And these are also all on our website under events, or lovetheresort.com events. I think it's 4 to 6, but I'll need to verify.
That's okay.
Okay. Awesome.
I think maybe you're about to say what I'm saying. Diane, we just want to thank you for the pet parade, for letting us move in and take over the inn on that day when we thought it was going to be pouring rain. And the turnout was just fantastic, and we just really appreciate everything your team did. All your team, everybody came out. Everything we needed, it was wonderful.
Thank you.
And Dave, and Sam. It's a wonderful thing, Dan. I tried to call him, but he's too busy.
I already let him know and let his team know. Yes, of course. I always pass it along. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Jameson, quick, before the power goes out.
Yeah, so you saw that plane, right? So that's
How
a
fitting would
good,
that be?
so that's a good indicator of a recloser working its magic.
Thank you.
Typically, that would be, when you see that in your house, and you get that little, it'll be 2 or 3, that is the substation, like, safety device kind of doing its magic to protect very expensive equipment. It's not saying that it's right here, anywhere close by, but my phone will probably buzz in a second to tell me that a feeder is opened up somewhere in our system. That is it trying to force that issue, get that object off the line. So, little fun fact. And our line crew is out there in all weather, and it is nasty, so you can imagine how crappy that is. But my name is Jason Holland, Jefferson PUD Communications Team, and see everybody. It was really interesting. It was really cool to hear about the water and wastewater system here. That was a great report, so that was cool to sit down. On our end, we have similar things happen where it's budget season. There's conversation. We have a new budget since we didn't have a meeting last go round. I wasn't able to say, hey, it's passed, but we have an approved budget for 26. It is the largest budget to date. It is $89 million. And that is just up a little bit from the last one. And a lot of what's included in that total is grant funding. So if you take that out, then it's actually not the largest. But we have a ton of money coming in on the grant side, on the broadband specifically, since we secured $65 million. Now, unfortunately, as I've said in previous meetings, that doesn't really impact Ludlow because y'all are served according to the eyes of the state and federal entities. I'm sorry, I know service can be awful here and there. But know that our network is being built robust enough to expand in the future. You just got to talk to Dan Tuber, who sends his regards. He's the commissioner for this district. And you can always reach out to him and say, hey, Dan, it's that broadband. And it helps to register on our website. It's free. It puts a dot on the map, says I'm interested, and we love that. So basically, I just want to pass along that our budget is approved. We had the cycle through, but we do have a new GM. He was at one of our previous meetings here. And I'm sure Joe will join us in the future one. Right now, he's down with Dan at PPC, which is Public Power Operations down in Portland right now. Put in the good work for us. Because we are a public utility like 28 others in the state, and we all do our best to advocate for the issues to keep costs low for all of us. And that's kind of what Joe is thrust into as our new GM, is getting to travel. I will be joining him and Dan back in DC to be part of a group of Washington-based utilities to really, really press our legislators and at the national level to just make funding available for infrastructure. Because that dollar amount that I threw out there is big. Like on the infrastructure side, I mean, we have 11.7 million on the electric side. That's a lot of capital investment. And that's what we need to have as an infrastructure. We're talking about what's underground here with the water systems. We also, because we don't have poles everywhere in the Ludlow area, you got to consider the age of the infrastructure underground here as well. It's a big challenge. You're talking 60 years on the water system. Well, our underground, even if it was done in the 70s, 80s, we inherited that. Maximum life for a typical distribution line is 30 years. After that, every day's a good day. So when you get an outage in these underground systems in your neighborhood and we have to dig up, that's why I was oohing and awing at the back truck. Boy, if we had that, it cut down our time. Because you have to call in dirt work, you have to fix the problem, but you're putting a small section in, upgrading that section. But remember, the rest is under there too. So these are things we have to take into consideration, and we're very fortunate. They must have done a great job here. But it is direct period, so keep that in mind. And we always respond, so you always see our crews out there any time of day or weather. And yeah, any questions y'all got? I got anything? Happy to help.
Usually in the worst weather, when we see out there.
I know, right? This never happens in the middle of the day on a sunny day. Yeah.
So, I'm guessing that there's some resources set aside for renewables and rebates for people, years, solar panels, that kind of stuff.
If you check out our website, we actually just got the latest numbers from BPA. So BPA, we just signed a contract with them for 22 years for our new power agreement. Part of all that contract is energy efficiency, because when BPA, they're flowing water over the dams, they need to save as much as possible. They want us to save here at our level, and by adding heat pumps and upgrading our heat pump water meters, all of that, when they incentivize that, it reduces load, and then they can have more to spread around.
I want to give a shout out to everybody that's listening. I have that hot water heater that's been 10 years old. Does this thing actually work?
There you go.
It does. And I'm pulling that hot water heater out putting in a heat pump hot water heater, and it's gonna cost me about $1,500 doing it myself. I'm gonna get about $800 or so, roughly, utility district rebate, and then there's federal rebates as well. So that just about pays for the hot water heater. And that's giving $600 less a year estimated electrical costs, and that's at current rates. And we know that's not reality. Power's going to be going up a lot here in the near future.
So, a couple things, actually check our rebates now, if you haven't installed it yet, the rebate amount, you'll get a check back at the amount that we now, since we're doing self-installs. Talk to Kyle Chase, our energy efficiency specialist. He can do in-home assessments too, so just contact him, he'll come out and say your space is good for it, it's not, because heat pump water heaters are unique where they pull heat from the air around it. You can have a very cold closet, you know, that needs to be a good size. But the rebate amounts went up considerably from EPA on those. So if you self-install, you can save not only purchase price, but you can actually save money on top of that.
And people don't realize how well this works. My hot water heater is right next to my hot air furnace. It's leaking heat in my garage. Hot water pump, it's going to suck it up and put it in the water.
Yes, it's crazy science, I love it. Yeah.
Just at the meeting at the library this week, maybe it was, you made a really interesting comment about when the power goes off, for us to go turn our water heater off to prevent that cold surge thing you talked about. And
That's
I've never heard that
cold load.
before.
Yeah, so during a cold load kind of pickup, it goes back to that, you build a grid to your peaks, right? Your peak cold is what you're shooting for. And as we saw in January 24, that got really cold, like really cold. And the problem is you're maxing out a lot of transformers at that point. When you can shed load, say your power goes out, it's that emergency curve, that bell curve you see. On our end, we can see the power increase. Your water heater goes into emergency mode. And it says, oh, I'm back, I got power. Oh no, I need to get this hot. And it instantly, all your neighbors ramp up at the same time. And that creates a spike. We watch it, and then we hit 200 amps, and there it goes. So if you can, you don't have to every single time. Like that's, if you're out for a few hours and your water tank is starting to get colder, just very quickly, you know, if you got a label, you know exactly what it is, flip it, and give it about 30 minutes after the power's back on, and then go flip it again, and you're good. That saves us that initial upswing from the peak, and that's why it's very frustrating when you'll see about 5 minutes in, the power will back out. It's because you're exceeding the amp draw on that. That's certain.
Good to know.
Well, cool. Well, any other questions? I mean, feel free to reach out. I'm on our About page, so my name, contact information, phone, all that stuff is there. So please don't hesitate.
Thank you, HOA updates. Joan, do you have anything you want to share?
Oh, just very briefly, our current general manager, Brian Belmont, will retire effective 12/31. His replacement, Mike Wilson, has been on the job with him, being mentored, and part of the transition is we will have an external audit of the 2025 financials as Brian leaves and Mike takes over, just to be sure everything is above board. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you.
The outdoor pool is still closed.
Well, only until January 1st, though, right? Whatever day the plunge is. Carolyn had to leave because she was going to pick up a kitty cat from a surgery. But she wanted me to remind folks that tomorrow at the Day Club is the monthly fundraiser pancake breakfast from 8:30 to 10. And tomorrow they're raising money for the Tri-Area Food Bank. It's not technically open to the public. You have to be an invited guest, but I work the door. So if anybody wants to come, you're my guest. moving on to board business, we have a handful of things we need to approve. Starting with, thanks guys. The minutes from the September 4th, 2025 special meeting right after, oh no, that's the regular meeting, sorry. September 4th. That everybody saw, I trust, or is everybody had access?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
2 seconds.
Discussion, questions, comments, concerns? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Excellent. The second one is that October 21st brief meeting we had after the annual meeting to elect officers. Again, should have been in your email yesterday, I think. Do we have a motion to approve that one?
Motion made.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That one passes. Then we need to get in writing in our minutes approval of the new signatories at the bank. So replacing John Goldwood and Tam and, John Hodgson. Yeah, would be myself, Gary Hammond, and Howard, who's coming here, Howard Weiner. Do we have a motion for that?
Motion made.
And a second?
Second.
And, any discussion, comments, questions, concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And then we have had a couple of new committee assignments, primarily to the Relations Committee.
Yes,
Business
this
Relations.
might be needed, but it's right now it's community and business relations.
And both Chris and Gary would like to join that committee, and in order to do that, we have to have a motion and approve it.
So moved.
So moved. So seconded?
I'm sorry.
Joe.
Who's second?
I'm testing our new secretary, we're going as fast as I possibly can. There was a second, any discussion? And those in favor?
Aye.
And those opposed? That one passes. And then the last thing we need to approve is Colleen is going to be assigned as the Community Opportunity Fair Liaison, work with Tam next year, as Tam will be stepping away after next year's Community Opportunity Fair. Can I get a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We can pass again. Thanks, everybody. A quick treasurer's report, just because we're here and we should do that monthly.
Sure. So be general with me, this is my first one. As of 10/31, we had $16,940.42 on hand, cash on hand. Community contributions of October, $2,358.16. And I just want to note at this time that in September, the previous month, we had $3,367.38 in community contributions, for a total of just under $6,000 in the 2 months. We had payables of $283, POV expenses of $957.67, cash on hand for 11/1/2025 is $18,057.91. Any questions? It's just the Reader's Digest version, money in, money out.
And that's really all we need. If people want more details, we can provide them. Did you want to do a brief Trails Liaison report, Howard?
Sure. That will be brief. I'm the liaison to the Trails Committee. The Trails Committee is a committee of the Port Pleasant Village Council, and they operate mostly autonomously in that they just want to build trails. But POBC is their, essentially, we administer The monies that come through, $1,000 comes through from PLA, $1,000 from South Bay, $1,000 from PLA, and $1,000 from us. And that makes up almost their total budget. But briefly, since Larry Scott was out of town, we ended up in a couple of conversations, starting with signs, because John, who's made all the new signs that are now up on our trails, noted that he had to take down a sign. And that was at OT2, with a trail that OT2 board wanted to see stopped for the time being, because they thought it might interfere with folks' their backyards, that people walking through those trails. That still has to be resolved. And then the only other thing coming up, and Carolyn's not here, and I won't go into the weeds, but at the South Bay Community Association annual meeting last July, it was brought up in the presentation that they need to discuss trails at the South Bay Community Association in regards to our insurance. And I have all the memorandums of understanding that are the agreements that we have with everywhere they work. But we're going to have that conversation. It will be deeper. But I just wanted to bring the board particularly up to speed that don't do that. Now, one last thing I want to say is that I did ask that a member of the Trails Committee start attending our meetings and that we can build a stronger relationship. I'm a liaison, but I do not represent trails. And that's I'm very sensitive to that. So I want to make sure that that can happen. That individual happens to be Jerry Kelch, the gentleman that presented to the board and did such a wonderful job with the trails report. He has said that with Larry's blessing, he'd be glad to come, but we will see. And that's my goal. Anyway, that's my report. Thank you.
Do you accept comments from Taylor?
Indeed.
So the Trails Committee put forward to the LTAC Committee, that's the Lodging and Tax Advisory Committee,
Oh, the grant.
a grant for $7,500.
That's
And
correct.
it appears, preliminarily, it appears that that grant will be fully funded. They endured many, many hours of deliberations to consider numerous applications for the funding, and it appears that that will be fully funded. They have their final deliberation on Friday. It's not so much supposed to be a deliberation as it is to discuss a rounding error in the final distribution amount. So I think it's pretty safe to say and that grant was for printing literature of the maps.
Yeah, I can speak to that. I did speak to it because it was still in process, but the fact of the matter is that the application went in for the $7,500. It's to do new maps, to upgrade. We now have over 30 miles of trails in Port Ludlow that these folks maintain. And by the way, there's been over 1,485 hours of volunteerism to date, roughly. And that will go a long ways. So that's very good news. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. The only other thing I have on our board business agenda is our upcoming workshop schedule. Our regularly scheduled workshop is on the 18th of this month here at Bay Club. And then we're going to try and squeeze in a couple more in early December, depending on people's availability and what we need to cover. We've just got all new officers and a third of a new board. We just get together, get our heads together, and make a plan for the year. And I think that's all we have. We have a section for audience comments from any of the three of you. Jackson.
There's Jackson. Hi there. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jackson. I'm not a Portlandian, but I'm working for honorary status. Luddites. I'm not a Portlandite. But I'm working towards honorary status, right?
Yes. Absolutely.
I come here today. I wear lots of hats in this community, but today I'm going to put on my Chinook Band Boosters hat. I don't know if the new rumors have gotten down here yet, but on Monday, November 10th, so coming up here, leaders from around our entire county to join us. So far, we've got our state senators coming, our state house representatives, both of them are coming. We're gonna have the mayor of Port Townsend, city manager of Port Townsend, and I would love to extend the invite to all of you to join us. It is the Veterans Day Assembly for the school. However, at that time, we will be making a huge surprise announcement that affects our children, our band. It's a complete surprise to them, so they're going to be finding out live. Yes. So don't tell anything. No, and we're going to have King 5 coming. Seattle Times is coming. The leader will be there. PM is possible. I don't know. They said he'd send somebody, and then never really confirmed. But I'd love it if any of you or all of you could attend. You want to and this will be at the Chimicum High School.
What was the date and time?
That was my question.
Thank you. Yes, at the Chimicum High School in the auditorium. If you know the layout, it's kind of in the middle of the building. We're going to have some people outside kind of shuffling in. So if you're available, I'd love to have you there.
What's the date?
Oh, sorry. It'll be on Monday, November 10th at 1:15. Expect about an hour.
Is
I don't want to tell you. No, I don't want to take it.
Is PLPA involved in this?
Is PL? I don't think so.
Well, we have to get them involved. Portland Local Performing Arts, they give grants.
Oh, yes. I
As
heard about
does
this.
Ludlow Village Players.
Yes. I think that was an individual grant, so we had to talk.
Well, we're having trouble giving away individual grants.
Okay, well, then we'll apply.
So we are also considering changing the answer, sorry.
And
We're also considering grants, they're smallish, but grants to support band trips for competitions, things like that.
So this would be
Right up that alley.
Should we spoil the surprise, or you guys?
Where is it?
You're streaming the meeting. You're streaming the meeting.
I am streaming this as well.
Oh, no, this is streaming.
Oh, gotcha.
You're live.
Yeah, we can't do that.
Oh.
Yeah, we see.
Okay, no, everybody who's listening.
Mum's the word.
JK.
So, my last question.
Yes.
How's the bug?
Well, it's-
If you don't know, his dog, he has a great Dane, and it's the most wonderful dog in the world. So,
And he's-
Wait a minute.
Hey, you met.
I love Bud. He sits on me every time he sees me, so.
Barry, do you have any comments? I'm gonna ask everybody.
No. All good.
Okay.
All good.
Thank you, folks. Then, Joe, is it time?
It is time. I move to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor? I'm gonna call it 5 o'clock. How's it going?
Where's Kansas? Yeah.
Look at the website. We do have.
I did, this just kind of came out of nowhere. We just had that introduction 3.5 weeks ago. Our team is and then our federal representatives were also informed, but the shutdown.
They have to be busy in case there's a vote. You pull those 4 lights down, you see the sliders? There's 4 of them. They're up high. Pull those 4 all the way to Adam. Thank you.
Is it LED or?
I know, I don't think it's me.
I live in Germany.
Yes.
I could just tell it was a trick. Thanks, John. Appreciate it.